In this segment, I want to talk about end-of-life decisions. Probably the most difficult discussion that you'll have with the pals is what do they want done at their death? What are their wishes? Where do they want to be buried? What do they want from a funeral standpoint? What clergy do they want to be involved with? Do you have grave plots? Where do you want those grave plots to be located? Once you have that discussion with the pals, and I can tell you it's not an easy discussion, it's very emotional, very difficult, but you need to have that discussion. And then once those decisions are made, then you need to act on them. You have to make sure that you have purchased the grave plots. You have to go meet the clergy, and so they know who you are as a caregiver, and hopefully they'll visit the pals also, so they'll know who the pals is. The funeral director, you've got to go to the funeral home and say, I expect that we're going to need your services 3 months from now, 4 months from now, 5 months from now, whatever it might be, but you want them to know who you are, and you want to look at the options that are available from a funeral standpoint and get all of those things as far as grave plots, as far as clergy, as far as funeral home. You want all those administrative things set up ahead of time so that you don't have to deal with them at the end of life. The emotions that you're going to have at that point in time are going to preclude you from making good, sensible decisions, which you're in much better shape doing ahead of time. So you've got to have the discussion with the pals. Where do they want to be buried? What funeral home are they interested in? Who's the clergy that they want to be involved? Those kinds of things have to be discussed with the pals. Again, very difficult. And then go do all those things. Buy the grave plots. Talk to the clergy. Talk to the funeral home. And get those administrative things out of the way so that you don't have to deal with them at the time. One of the issues that you're going to face is do you want the pals to have end of life at home or in a nursing home? There's various thoughts on the subject. There used to be, at least from the people I spoke with here in our town, that it was best to have the patient, the pals, experience end of life in their home environment. There's now some discussion about the fact that it creates a situation where every time you as the caregiver come back to your home, you're facing the physical bedroom or physical living area where your loved one died. And that's extraordinarily difficult. So there's some school of thought that says when you're close to end of life, being in a palliative care facility or in a hospice facility for the final period of time is helpful because the patient, you're not saying goodbye to the patient in your home environment. Again, that's a personal decision. It's just want to present it to you as an option for you to think about, and you can decide what's best for you. Certainly, the pals is probably going to want to be at home, but there may be medical reasons. There was in the case of my wife where medically we really couldn't deal with her situation effectively in a home environment, and in the last month I had to move her into a palliative care facility, and it turned out to be the right decision for us. The other issue that you're going to have to deal with at end of life in the last few months is guilt. If you've been dealing with the pals for a long period of time, period of years, there's going to be guilt that you're going to experience about wanting it to end. And that's natural as a caregiver. You're really beat up physically at that point in time. You're beat up emotionally, and you start to wonder, how much longer can I do this? How much longer can I keep up this kind of caregiving? And so you're probably going to experience some level of guilt about feeling that, geez, you really want this to end. And that's natural, according to everybody I've spoken with. It's a natural feeling, when you get to the end, and you shouldn't feel guilty about feeling guilty. It's a natural reaction to a horrible, horrible situation. Losing the PALS is, it was expressed at one of our support group meetings, is a combination of bad news and good news. It's bad news that the patient, of course, the PALS got ALS, which is just a terrible, terrible disease to be inflicted upon anybody. It's terrible from a bad news standpoint, because you have to be a caregiver to a loved one for a long period of time. But the good news is that the patient is finally released from this horrible disease, and you're at a point where hopefully you can get on with your life. So it's a real combination of bad news and good news at the end of life.